Hello, everyone. I'm Ed Fuller, the editor of the Trackside Photographer, and today we have a very special guest, the world-renowned artist, Angela Trotta Thomas. She's probably best known for her work with the Lionel Train Company, and we're going to be talking about that today. Angela, it's great to have you with us.
I'm delighted to be here, Ed. Thank you so much for inviting me.
As a boy, I grew up in the 1950s, and so nothing says Christmas to me like Lionel Trains and Santa Claus. So I wanted to share a couple of pictures of me on Christmas morning, 1952, with my first Lionel Trains under the Christmas tree. So your paintings really speak to me in this regard. So I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about how this interest of yours came about and your association with the Lionel Train Company.
Well, I'm with Lionel now 30 years. I was started in 1990 communicating. What happened was my husband's a train collector. He's an avid Lionel train collector. And I was working on my master's research project. So he was kind of saying, why don't you do something about the artwork that was done in the early catalogs, which was really beautifully and evocatively done. And I felt like maybe he has something there. So I started really researching it. And what we found was no one was doing anything today, in current times, resurrecting those iconic memories of that time period. So that's how it was born. We visited the Lionel Train, the TCA Museum when we were starting out, and the librarian there decided to give us some help, which I was absolutely thrilled about. And I learned very quickly that, no one was doing anything with it. So we started thinking about it. So what happened was we got in touch with Nick Ladd. Nick Ladd at the time was a past president of the TCA. He was also vice president of John Wanamaker's and a marketing man. So we got in touch with him, and he saw the artwork and said, absolutely, you should do something with like Christmas cards or limited edition prints, something really special, he said, because people will respond to this artwork. That's how it started. And I've been doing it ever since. So, and the connection with Lionel came from the fact that because I was painting specifically Lionel Trains in Lionel memories, I wanted to go the right route. So we got in touch with Dick Kuhn at the time, who was the owner of Lionel Trains. And he was delighted. I heard back within a week that they were going to license me with creating these iconic memory paintings of Lionel Trains. So that's how it started.
I saw you in a TV interview, a clip on YouTube, and you were actually working on a painting during the interview. And I noticed that you had a little still life set up there. And you said your husband was a Lionel Train collector. So I'm wondering, I'm assuming that you have access to a lot of these pieces that you paint.
We do. I do. We have many trains. As you can see behind me, there's a lot here. We have trains in just about every room of our house. So yeah, I pretty much, if I don't have it, I have really close friends that have it. So as far as having the right reference, and I do set up still lifes because I need things to be proportionately correct with each other. It's very difficult to try to just draw it without having the scale properly set up next to one another. So it's good to have, the products on hand at all times.
Do you ever work from photographs?
Oh yeah, both. Yeah. I work from photographs, especially with children, because children never sit still. So I will actually set up. I mean, it started out with my son being my main model 30 years ago. And of course, now he's, 37. So, now I have grandchildren, and I have other people's kids and everybody else, anybody that'll pose for me. But when it comes to having any memory that revolves around Lionel Trains with children in it, I photograph that. I'll set up the trains and everything so the kids are actually interacting with the trains when I'm doing the photography, but that's how I set them up. That's what I do.
Great. Before we start looking at the pictures, I want to share something from your website that I think is a real good lead in to what we're going to be looking at here. You wrote, "I am most interested in the emotional attachment that the child has for their treasures and the traditions that they have forged. I strive to capture a dreamlike state with my paint application, so viewing the paintings can take the viewer to another time and place." And with that, let's look at some pictures.
Great.
So Angela, the first picture that we're looking at here is called Wishing, Window Wishing. And I guess based on what you said just a few minutes ago, I have to ask, is this your son?
That is my son.
Okay.
And the funny part about this painting, when it began, it was July and it was hot. And I pulled out his winter coat and winter hat and scarf, and I had the train set up on the kitchen table, and he wasn't happy. And though that looks like a wanting, loving memory for him, that is, I want to take this coat and hat off.
Yeah, he
But
looks real wistful there.
yeah, he looks wistful, right? No, it's a good memory. It really is a very good memory for me, but it isn't actually the memory I was trying to capture. That the memory I was trying to capture obviously was the child looking in the toy train, in the windows at Christmas time at the new toy trains that, were just being introduced, and wishing that they could get that train. And I probably over the last 30 years have heard that memory more than any other memory. And I think that's why this particular print has been sold out for years, but is like a very iconic. It was the very first print that I released, and people just really responded to this memory.
Yeah, it's a beautiful painting. And what as I look through a lot of your work, it's very evocative, but it's also, I'm struck by how carefully constructed your paintings are. And just for an example, in this particular painting, I think the tower, that tower on the left-hand side and the pantograph of the locomotive on the right-hand side just complete the framing there that started by the arc of the toy trains sign. And I think that's very effective. Thank
you. And I tried to keep that going to come right back over to the front of the GG1 as well. So,
yeah. The Boy's Life. Tell us about this one.
Well, again, over the years, I've been doing this for many years, and I've talked to many, many, many nostalgic collectors of all old toys, not just Lionel Trains, and other toys would come up. Obviously, baseball mitts, Tinker Toys was big, erector sets, all that sort of stuff. So I decided to do something that kind of spoke to just the whole memories of the time period. This was a really large painting. It was 40 high by 30 wide. And my husband built me a little shelf like that, I was able to set everything up on the way I wanted it set up and the way I wanted it to look. And these are the kind of things that I think a boy of that era, if he was a lucky boy of that era, would have had all these things. If not, these were the things that he would have wanted. And so that's why I called it a boy's life, because it would be a boy's life in that time period.
Yeah, I guess I'm showing my age, but every object in there looks familiar to me from when I was a kid.
That's what I actually always try to do when I paint these paintings. I know my audience, even though I think these paintings speak to people that are outside of my audience, but my audience are the people that actually have these memories for real, that actually, wanted these trains, played with these toys. And so I'm very meticulous when I try to set things up so that I can kind of pull at the heartstrings a little bit and have that memory resurrected. That's my goal.
Tell us a little about. I'm intrigued by the special. I guess there's special edition boxcars based on this painting. How does all that work?
If you look behind me in the middle shelf there, they're all box cars that have my artwork on them over the years. So I've been working back and forth. We've kind of worked back and forth, Lionel and I, whereas I paint the paintings, and then a lot of these paintings have ended up on the sides of box cars, engines, cabooses. We're always doing new products. Have new products come out now every year where we actually have an iconic engine series, which you'll see in some of the pictures that come up later on. But this painting, I think, was so well received because, again, this is what, if you were a Lionel Train kid, these are the engines you would have wanted, for sure. You probably couldn't get them all because they were all really, most of them were very expensive engines for the time period. But these are the engines that I think would really resonate with most collectors today. When I created this, I didn't create this for the box cars, but they worked perfectly on the box cars. So Lionel decided to do a 3-card series with each shelf, and they worked out perfectly. It's one of my favorite things that Lionel's done with my artwork.
Yeah, it's very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
And here's another example of that. I really like the toy figures in this because they just sort of set the scene really for me.
I try to put little things in. Now these paintings I am creating for the side of a boxcar, so I keep myself within those parameters at this point. This was the first painting in what we're calling the iconic engine series, and I've done now, I think I think there's 3 or 4 in the series. And if you look behind me, you're going to see the Blue Comet in the New York Central, and they're going to be coming out next year. It was so well received that we're continuing choosing these engines that were really like the popular engines and putting them on the sides of boxcars. And so it's kind of a really neat series that we're working on right now. Yeah, this is another piece in that.
One of the things that I like about it is that faint cityscape in the background, and you know what it reminds me of is those the books and things that I read as a child, and I would dream about the distant cities and towns and that kind of thing, and that sort of evokes that to me.
Well, I'm glad it does, and that's actually what I would like you to see when you look at it. The way I actually did that is I came up with the idea first for this painting, and of course I didn't have anything that showed the windows, and I knew I would have to put in the buildings in the background, and I wanted them to be very distant and not very detailed, so that they were there, but really the engine was the focal point. So I actually got cardboard and I cut out all those windows and then set up the whole scene with the figures and everything else, photographed it, and then when I went back and started painting it, that's when I added in all the background to give it that kind of distant feeling.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like it.
Thank you. And that's actually part of the iconic series as well.
You know what I love about this is the way sounds sort of crazy, but I just love the way Santa just looms over over this whole scene here. He's just like the central figure, and he's really there.
Well, the way this one came about is this is actually was done for the side of a hobby shop, which Lionel is releasing this year. And it's a really cool hobby shop. I'm really happy with this. But they wanted a mural for the side of the building, as if a mural was actually painted on the side of, as they are now, painted on the side of buildings. So, and of course they wanted a Christmas theme. So I just started going through all my reference and everything else, and then I had my husband. My husband has ended up being Santa many times more than he'll admit to you, and it doesn't look a bit like my husband, but holding the train at the right angle in the right way so that I could get the whole feeling together. And then I actually set it up with the accessories, so that again the proportions were right and everything else. And then I added in all the extra, the trees and Santa, the Santa outfit, and Santa's face looks nothing like my husband. I changed all that. That's sort of, I have a starting point, a jump off point with the trains, and I do try to make them as realistic as possible. But a lot of the parts of the paintings end up being sort of out of my head. I change things around to make them more magical look. I want that magical feeling when you look at these pieces. And I think your next slide will show how this is going to be.
Right.
Yes, it does. Okay, so if you look to the left, my left actually, Santa Claus is across the whole building, and the trees go right across the window and everything else. So that would be like the mural on the side of the building. And then the front of the building is all accessorized. You can't tell in these pictures, but you can see inside, and there's artwork, and there's a layout inside, and then there's actually little children standing on the front of the pad there looking in the window. It turned out to be a really, really neat accessory. I don't have my sample yet, or I would show it to you, but I think they're on the water somewhere right now.
You know, I think this is the picture of Santa is just in my mind, it's the iconic Christmas night scene with Santa making his delivery.
Yes, again, that was that was set up, and my husband was, I had him hold everything again when we were cleaning up after Christmas. I think it was a couple of years ago. I said, I've got an idea. Let's do this. So I got a big garbage bag, and I filled it with the pieces that you see in there. And of course, they weren't all that like that, but similar. And then had him set up, you know, and again, he looks nothing like that. I changed everything. In fact, my husband's much, much thinner. But so I kind of take, you know, artistic license to make it look like I want it to look. And it was supposed to feel like Santa's delivery when he, you know, dropped in down the chimney and was ready to put that underneath the tree. So,
yeah, you know, when I attempt to picture in my mind what your setup looked like here with your husband and the trash bag and so on, I think it's
you
just
know, I didn't think of it. I probably could have sent you a few of those pictures. It doesn't look anything like this painting. Trust
yeah, I
me.
was going to say it's just magical what you've done with that. You know, when I
It's
think of
just,
what it must have looked like to your, you know, to my eye when I looked at the scene. But what you see here was just magical, as I said.
well, like I said, he doesn't have a beard. He doesn't look anything like that. I did put a Santa hat on him. Wasn't happy, but I did. But other than that, nothing really is like it was in the setup.
Tell us a little bit about this one.
This piece was done for a really special project that we did last year with Mary Williams Gallery in Colorado. The originals sold, and the sale of the originals, I can't remember what the portion was, but it was a good portion of the original sale that went to Feeding America. So we were able to, and then I released 50 prints. I only have 4 left of this piece, and I think it just kind of touches, you know, it's all about America, obviously. And then what's more America than Lionel Trains and baseball? I mean, maybe apple pie, but it didn't seem to fit into the painting. But
Right.
that's what I was trying to capture, the feeling of that time period, but still today.
Yeah, I think this is, as you said, I think this is just quintessentially American.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now for something a little bit different. Tell us how this came about. Was this a commission?
Yes, sort of. It was Neil Young is a lot of people know his history with Lionel, but he was a very avid collector and affiliated with Lionel in the 90s. And actually he and his company helped develop a lot of the sounds and that sort of thing that are in the engines. And today that were, you know, was called Lion Tech at the time. And during that time period, I actually got to know him and his manager, and he actually purchased quite a few of my original paintings. And then he wanted me to do something specifically for, it was a European tour with Booker T and the MGs. These pieces went on t-shirts and posters for that tour in 1993. And he specifically, the one request he had for these pieces was he wanted them to be magical, but he wanted them to be kind of like, and the way he put it was falling off the earth feeling. So I really had to think about that and how I would depict that. And he was very pleased with them. They really happy with them. And of course he and his band, the band there too. So it was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge.
Yeah, I have to confess, I did not know Neil Young was a model railroader. I
Yes,
know there's several celebrities who are. Rod Stewart is another one who has a real extensive model railroad layout, from what I understand.
he does. He does. There are quite a few.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you'll have to call up you'll have to call up Rod and see if he wants to have some.
Maybe someday, we'll see.
You know, this picture, this painting strikes me as being a little bit different from what we've been looking at, in that the edges are softer and the whole thing is a little more dreamlike or memory-like to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that was a plan. That's exactly what I wanted to create a still life with this painting, but I also wanted it to be more abstract, and I wanted it to be dreamlike, and I also was very concerned about it having soft edges. I wanted it to be more into the fine art
Hmm.
style. This actually was accepted into the Oil Painters of America competition a few years back. It was accepted in Salmagundi art competition, which is Salmagundi Art Club in New York City. It's the oldest art club in the country. So this piece means a lot to me in the fact that I really feel like it's a real crossover between what I was doing and the fine art of the way I'm trying to take my painting into another realm, and the realm is more fine art. So this was deliberate and hopefully successful at accomplishing that.
I had spent some time on your website looking through the galleries of paintings that you have there, and you know, your train work is certainly wonderful, but your other paintings are very evocative and as well.
People don't realize I paint a lot of different things. I don't just paint trains. I'm known mostly for Lionel Train art, and probably it's a very large amount of what I do, but I paint many different things, and enjoy equally the challenge and the changes of all the different subject matter that I cover.
Yeah, I would encourage the people who are watching to take a look at your website. I'll put a link in the description below, but it's very worthwhile to spend some time with Angela's work, because it's really very nice. And as I said, all of it to me speaks to memory. So
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that very much.
all right, this is our last slide, and it's obviously not a Lionel train. Tell us a
No.
little bit about how this came about.
Well, this is the big boy, and it was at Steamtown. I used to live in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where Steamtown is.
Mhm.
And I now live in Charleston, South Carolina. But when I was still living up there, I worked with a model, and this was the woman that was my model, and she ended up in quite a few of my paintings. And we would actually meet there, and because I was always trying to coordinate her with the trains and the train memories. And I've done pieces. One piece was with her and a little girl sitting in the train, looking out the window, things
Saw
like
that.
that. Things that would actually resurrect train travel from that time period as well. But this engine was shining like crazy the day we were there, and it was cold. And we were walking across the tracks, and I just said, "Stop, don't move." And it just, this was a real fun painting to do because I loved getting the rust and the, just the feeling of like the massiveness of that piece of that train and her and I titled it Dreaming of a Better Place because it's kind of like she has a wistful kind of feeling and look in her face where I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going somewhere else, and hopefully it will be a better place.
Well, this painting really moved me, and it took me a while to figure out exactly why that would be. But I want to share a little story about how this painting comes across to me. My grandparents lived in a small town just a few miles north of Roanoke, Virginia, and the Norfolk and Southern ran through the town. My mom graduated from high school in 1944, and she attended Radford College. I don't really know if she ever rode the train to Radford, but I picture her coming home on the train after her first semester away, and it would have been right around Christmas. Even in the 1950s, when I remember them best, my grandparents were more of the 19th century than they were of the 20th century. Mom was the youngest of 12 children. Money
Wow.
was scarce, and my grandfather was of a time when women married and had children, and he didn't think you needed a college education for that. So my mother never went back to Radford after that one semester. She regretted that all of her life, and I see her in this painting, dreaming of being able to board that train and return to school.
See, that makes that really warms my heart. It wasn't part of my memory, but look what it brought back for you. That that makes me happy to hear that. I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Oh, it's a beautiful painting
Thank you.
and a moving. It's moving to me for some reason. So, or for that, not for some reason, for that reason.
Thank you. I'm glad that you feel that way. Very much.
Well, Angela, this has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed our talk, and I want to wish you and your family a very happy holiday season and a great new year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish the same to you and I won't be seeing any snow here, but if you get snow, enjoy it
Okay.
and have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas.
Yeah, it's been a few years since we've had a white Christmas around here, but you never know.
You never know these days. No, you don't. Well, thank you again for inviting me to do this today. I
And
really
thank you so
appreciate it.
much. Thank you so much. And to all our viewers, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for watching.
Bye now.
Be sure to check out Angela's website and explore the world of her beautiful and evocative art. Limited edition Lionel prints are also available. Links are in the description below.